Let's talk about driverless cars again. Waymo gets its first permit to test autonomous vehicles in New York City. Well, they've probably got about 2 roads and maybe 1 or 2 blocks where they can run. As ever, this is a classic Eric Adams mayoral. Isn't it great that Waymo are here, even though their ability to run is extremely limited? And a reminder, they have someone behind a remote control who can pick up the car the moment it has something it doesn't like, which is, as with Waymo currently in operation, extremely frequently. The data is not published, and whenever we get a glimpse of that data by accident, when Google or Alphabet or whatever release it, we realize that the interventions by the minimum wage driver worker is extremely frequent. These things don't work, and they're doing so in very limited conditions. They're not allowed on highways, bad weather, they're not allowed to run, and so on and so forth. But yeah, so hooray, autonomous vehicles, driverless cars, marvelous. The other thing, of course, is that the main proponent of driverless car technologies are the people who, the organization that claims to be at the front of the charge regularly, Tesla. It isn't, but that is the claim being made, has actually now basically given up on the promise of vehicle autonomy entirely, having redefined what their fully self-driving technology actually means. That definition has been altered. It's now just what they describe as a driver advisory system, without any promise of unsupervised self-driving in the future. So yeah, electric.co picked that up quite nicely. Well worth going into the details of that. Fred Lambert kind of going into some of the fiddly details. Of course, this is related because Tesla is just a get Musk rich quick scheme. It is related to his ridiculous compensation scheme because his compensation is tied directly to how many vehicles with FSD get sold. A grim situation, but yeah, this is the bubble beginning to burst in extreme slow motion, but it's happening. The driverless car hype, just like the LLM AI hype, is going pop. However, not enough for The Economist, because you better believe that The Economist is going, robotaxis will be the Sputnik moment for a declining Europe. The idea that having driverless taxis driving around is somehow going to save transport, and that it's a thing that if we don't, as Europe, import from the US, it's going to be collapse and decline. Obviously, this is some of the most stupid journalism you can possibly imagine from someone who apparently has never got a train or got on the Paris metro. Staggering levels of utterly supine stupidity. Someone who has clearly been to too many nice fancy dinners with driverless car and tech kind of industry folks. Yeah, this is obviously junk, but they get these sorts of stories get relentlessly published all the time, despite the ridicule from everyone that always comes along. And then you get all sorts of people going on Twitter going, well, actually, this anyone who says, there's some twerp recently, some tech nerd twerp going, actually, the trains are bad, and this obsession with delivering trains is actually really harmful. It's like, no, what? The point is that they're good, and what you're describing is hell. And of course, the reality in Europe, as much as anywhere else, is that the one thing we are importing from car culture in the US is the increasing size of the vehicles. Safety and space at risk as SUVs reach 30% of the car market in English cities. Researchers warn 30% of the market, a third almost of cars being SUVs. Took a photo of one recently that was, it's the Amarok, is it? This enormous sort of VW pickup thing. The height of the pickup bit and the nose was as high as the top of the Panda. The top of the Panda is like high enough for like a 9-year-old child to be invisible, let alone, my 2-year-old. Just appalling. Cars are destroying everything, and we should have fewer of them by a substantial margin. And we should be changing the law. The point of this is that there are considerations for changing the law to exclude SUVs from cities, but we should be changing the law and regulations to exclude SUVs from existence. They don't need to exist. There is no need for the majority of these types of vehicles to exist. Change, certainly pickups, big pickups like the Amarok. That's a vehicle that if our law does not exclude that vehicle from existing, then the law is not correct. And there is no argument to say, well, you need that vehicle. That vehicle has only existed in the UK for 5 years. So what did all of our society do before that? Maybe we should rethink how we define and allow individuals to move stuff around, if that's the only way they can move it around. Maybe that thinks about bigger questions of municipal logistics that we should maybe be considering. I wonder. And of course, this is not confined to the UK when it comes to European car madness. Some of the, ultra-conservatives, but it gives you an idea of where the right are pulling the Overton window. The German-Bavarian ultra-conservative Söder just published like a extremely vigorously pro sort of fossil fuel and car manifesto in 10 points. Yes to car country Germany. We were doing this until very recently. Not only was Rishi Sunak doing this, Mark Harper, etc., but Labour did a manifesto, a plan for cars, plan for drivers type situation as well. So, this is not, we're all doing this in Europe. It's a real mess. And if we don't, the cars have already ruined everything, and we're going to let them ruin everything to the point where there's nothing left to ruin. Bad news. Of course, from a driverless cars perspective, you can go back to the episode where Vicky and I went through why driverless cars will never exist. And the news continues to just back us up on this one. It was also a fun episode. Definitely go watch it.